All right, so my name is Genevieve Lowry. I am a certified child life specialist, and I am also a Reiki master. And welcome to Reiki Energizing You and Your Family. These webinars were initially designed for parents, so I'm going to sort of talk to that population, but since I know that there are a lot of child life people in the webinar, I will also speak to how to sort of incorporate some of this into practice, as well as addressing the uses within a medical population or a medical environment. All right, so a little bit about me. I am a certified child life specialist, so happy Child Life Month. I am a private practitioner in child life and consultant. I provide private practice I provide child life services to children and families that are facing a variety of crises, from illness to loss, to sibling illness, to parental illness and loss, plus a variety of some other things. Anything that I think fits within my scope of practice where children can benefit from additional preparation, play opportunities, developmental explanations, or where parents could use some additional coaching on how to talk to their children about specific circumstances that are going on in their lives. I'm also a consultant. I've participated in the design and development of some different websites, educational medical websites, family day events. I am a guest lecturer at a variety of different venues and environments. I am also an online educator. I have my own online learning platform, the Convenient Classroom, and that provides professional development units in the form of various webinars and coursework, predominantly for those in child life, creative arts therapies, music, and art therapists. I am a Reiki master, and I'll tell you a little bit more about my history with that in a few minutes. I am trained in infant massage as an infant massage instructor. I'm also trained in guided imagery. I am the author of the book Following Imagination, Activities that Move, Create, and Play with Guided Imagery, as well as I soon to have out another sort of activity book that's based off of one of the activities from this book called the Imagination Scrapbook. I'm an adjunct faculty at Bank Street College. I work both in the child life program there, as well as I've taught child development to the general ed and special ed students too. I am a mother of two, and I practice Reiki daily, not only on myself, but also on my children. I have attuned one of my children to be able to provide for herself as well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that too. So contact information for me is practicalparentingsolutions.com is my website that addresses my private practice and consulting and workshops and events that I have coming up. The Convenient Classroom is the website for the online learning platform for professional development units. And DIYchildlife.wordpress.com is really just a fun sort of website or video blog, I guess you could call it, that I started as a way to not only sort of share my experience of being in the field for almost 25 years, but I also have I really just enjoy creating and making teaching dolls and teaching tools that support our work as child life specialists, and I videotape myself doing that. So for others to have a good chuckle, and as well, hopefully you'll find it as some useful tools as well. practicalparentingsolutions@gmail.com is my email, so if you have questions following this, or if you don't get a letter from me within about a week and you need one, just you can email me at practicalparentingsolutions@gmail, and I will get that to you. And if there are some of you that if more than one of you is watching from one computer, it won't register, or you didn't register for the class, if you could just shoot me an email saying that you need a letter as well. Right. So hands-on, Reiki-on. Let me first give just a little bit of background more about my own Reiki experience and how I ended up here, I would say almost, I don't know, like it's got to be almost 15, 20 years ago now that I started this journey where I was asked by a very small department at that time. It has grown considerably in the last 20 years, but at that time it was a very small integrative therapies department, part of our hematology oncology unit. They asked me if I wanted to get trained in Reiki. I thought they were insane. I'd never heard of it before. I didn't know what they were talking about. I really didn't. At that time, integrative therapies were not sort of the norm. They were sort of popping up here and there. They weren't. They were mostly thought of as end-of-life type of care. So I really had no idea what they were talking about. And as most things when we don't know what they are, we're kind of like, no. So anyway, because I was the only child life specialist in that outpatient setting at the time, I had access to almost every child that came through the door. So they were really adamant about wanting me to learn to do this. So I went thinking, all right, I'll just go. So I went. It wasn't, super enlightening, that session. My aha moment with it did not come until considerably later, when I had an experience with a child that really changed my outlook and thought, where I watched this child and myself and two other people that were also trained in Reiki be able to really soothe and ease her pain and anxiety at a very critical moment in her treatment. And it was so moving that I really felt like, okay, I need to look a little bit more into this. And so thus began my journey into learning Reiki. We had been given a grant at the hospital to get trained, and so I continued on that journey whenever the opportunity came up to get the grant ran out before I was able to complete all the way to master level, so I had to go and do that on my own. Went all the way to New Hampshire to do that, and I'm very glad that I did, because this has certainly changed my life professionally, but also personally, as I will share some stories about my own journey and some of my own personal experiences with using Reiki. So, hands-on, Reiki on. All touch. So the interesting thing to understand and know about touch is that all touch with positive intention is healing. So when you reach out to your friend who is in crisis, when you comfort your child who is crying, when you put your arms around a loved one, you are helping that individual. You are sharing your energy. You are giving your energy to that person. But what's happening is that you're giving all of your own energy, so you're depleting your own while you fill up the other person. So if you can think back to a time in your life where you sat and you comforted a friend, a loved one, a patient, someone in your life who you sat with, you held their hand, you comforted them while they cried on your shoulder, they walked away from that experience feeling so much better for what you've given them, and you walked away absolutely exhausted and drained. And the reason for that is that you gave them your energy to boost and bolster themselves. And this is a common practice with parents. This is a common practice with healthcare professionals. And Reiki is a great tool to be able to incorporate into your daily lives as a way of restoring your own energy. Because what it does is that it allows you to function as a conduit for that energy. And I'll get a little bit more into that in a few minutes also. But what I absolutely love about this practice is that it's practical. And if the name of the business doesn't spell it all out for you, the Practical Parenting Solutions, I just don't think that people will use something that isn't practical, that doesn't make sense, and that isn't easily incorporated into people's daily routine. As an example of that is when I meditate, or if I meditate, I need to take aside 20 minutes. I need to find that time to do that. And sometimes that's really hard to find that time to sit and meditate for 20 minutes. But with Reiki, I can incorporate it into things that I'm already doing during the day. So when I'm sitting on the couch with my child, I can give my child Reiki. When I'm watching TV at night, I can offer myself Reiki. So it is something that I can easily incorporate into my daily routine, whether it be a few minutes at a time or a half an hour. Excuse me. All right, so who can receive Reiki and who can offer? So anyone can be on the receiving end of Reiki. Adults, children, the elderly, children with special needs, adults with special needs, people with healthcare conditions, special health needs, people with mental health conditions as well. Let's see, who did I leave out? Really, it is open to anyone. No one is too sick, too old, or too young to offer or to be on the receiving end of getting Reiki from someone. You can also offer it to yourself or others once you have been attuned and trained, and you can offer it to your pet. You can offer it really to anything that is living, because anything that is living requires energy, and anything that is living will pull that energy through you. Who do you offer Reiki to? Anyone who's been, or who can offer Reiki rather, who can offer it? Anyone who's been attuned. And the attunement process is what makes the Reiki practitioner. So the attunement is really coming to a Reiki class. It involves a deep meditation process and to unblock energy so that that person who is becoming the Reiki practitioner can then becomes the conduit when they offer Reiki to someone else. Who can offer? Adults, children, and the elderly. As long as they have been attuned and they've gone through this process, they can offer Reiki. I attuned my daughter at the age of, she was about 3. Now, granted, she did not come and attend a 5-hour class and sit through a very long meditation. As a matter of fact, I more or less chased her around the house while I did the things that I needed to do, because she was about 3.5 years old at the time. At the time, she was suffering pretty intensely some separation anxieties. She was going to preschool for the first time, and I thought if I could provide her with some tools that might help her to comfort herself during those transitions, that would be something that would empower her and would be useful to her. She later ended up needing to sort of go back to her Reiki treatments of giving them to herself when she around between the ages of like 8 and 10. She started to have some anxiety at night sleeping, and we incorporated Reiki and some guided imagery techniques into helping her be able to get herself back to sleep. So who also can offer Reiki? Caregivers, healthcare professionals, family members, you. If you as a parent want to learn, want to become attuned in Reiki, then you also can offer that to your children, to your spouse, to other loved ones in your family. If you have a job in healthcare, or if you are a professional who is on the giving end, teacher, nurse, people that are in sort of very giving professions, or even high-stress jobs, and you want to be able to be more accessible to your children when you come home and not so high-stress, I would absolutely recommend becoming attuned. I don't know what happened this slide. There we go. So, Reiki, what? So I said all this, and I'm sure you guys are still kind of like, I don't get it. Let me just check for a minute. I just want to check for a second. Okay, it looks like we're okay in the chat. Okay. So what is Reiki? Reiki is pronounced exactly how it sounds, Reiki. It is energy medicine is how I sort of refer to it, is what it comes under in, like if you look it up at the NIH and things like that under integrative therapies, it is energy medicine. Reiki promotes the body's natural ability to heal, and it's a way to support your overall well-being. So the interesting thing about what Reiki does is that, first of all, our bodies are already amazing machines. They already have a natural ability to heal. So, and we know this by when you fall down, you scrape your knee, your body sends platelets to heal that. You eat something that doesn't agree with your body, and you swell it up. You get a fever, and your body, that's your body's way of sort of trying to like heat out, using heat and white blood cells to get rid of the germs that are making you feel sick. So what Reiki does is it already kind of helps the body to be more efficient and more effective in what it's already capable of doing. So it promotes the body's natural ability to heal. And it's a way to support your overall well-being. It's a way to, even when you're not sick or when you're not, or when you are healthy, a way to maintain that, a way to manage your own stress level, a way to manage the stress level for your children, a way to sort of help yourself feel, feel more in control of things, I think. What Reiki is not, it is not a religion. The word Reiki is translated to a life force energy. I have to admit, I try to stay away from that terminology because I think it is confusing to people, and then especially in a hospital or healthcare setting, it implies that there's some kind of religious aspect to it. The therapeutic aspects of it are by no means religious. It's based off of energy, and everything in life has energy. So, and we know this by virtue of even the science of cell division, that cells are constantly that cells are constantly dividing and therefore producing energy. Sorry. Reiki is not a cure. It is not a cure for something, and it is not to be used instead of traditional treatment, but it is incredibly compatible, and there are no contraindicators for other types of treatment. So what are the benefits? All right, so this picture is of me and my son. I guess this was, I want to say a year ago, maybe, about a year and a half or so ago. He required tubes in his ears. Now, I am a child life specialist, so granted, we went on our preoperative tour and we did all kinds of preparation work. So he was pretty much a relaxed kid, but here I am giving him Reiki prior to going in, so that he also was, not feeling anxious or nervous about this experience. So hopefully we were helping him to feel more in control of this experience. And some of the other benefits are clarity, that for me personally, when I worked for almost 18 years at the same job, and I loved that work, and I loved that job, but when I left it because I had a second child. We moved away from the caregivers that we had, which were all family members. And my husband's job changed also, so he was not he wasn't able to, originally my mother, my husband, and me were the three people that cared for my daughter. When we moved out to New Jersey, that was not as feasible by virtue of distance and time. And I had to make a choice about going to work at that time I also worked part-time, so going to work 3 days a week or staying home with my child. And I really was, it was a difficult decision for me to make, primarily because I loved the job I was doing, and I was good at it, and I needed to find a way to create a balance of being able to do work that I found incredibly fulfilling and rewarding, but also be able to care for my own children in the way that I wanted to as a parent. So I did a lot of Reiki and a lot of time, I spent a lot of time doing Reiki to myself in order to just sort of quiet those inner voices about whatever things I was feeling. And the idea of a private practice was born. Now, private practice in child life is not a traditional route, so more Reiki was done as a way to even sort of figure out how and what that would look like and how that would work, because it's not there wasn't somebody to call up and say, hey, you're doing this, how do you do this? There are a few of us out there, but at that time I didn't really know who they were. So Reiki can certainly help you with decision making, and I think in the long run what it really did was that it just quiets the voices in your mind and helps you figure out your own path and your own journey. Did some vision of, by doing Reiki, did some vision of this practice come to me? No. But it did help me calm sort of those inner voices so that I could listen and sort of think clearly about what I wanted and what I wanted that practice to look like. It improves sleep. I don't have trouble sleeping, but my daughter does, and it certainly was beneficial to her. My husband also does, and it's beneficial to him, and he uses it. It's something that absolutely helps you sleep better and more deeply at night. It increases relaxation. I also think that it increases your connection, and your connection to not only to yourself, but also your connection to your loved ones. So by incorporating Reiki into sort of your daily interactions with your family, you're increasing your connection to them. I find that my intuition, I'm much more sensitive energetically to when my kids have had either a good day or a bad day, or if something's upsetting them or bothering them, that that I have this sort of heightened kind of sense to their change in energy as a result of doing Reiki practice. I certainly can tell you that when my son was born, he was also born with acid reflux, and that was incredibly difficult for us during that time. I walked around literally wearing him in a snuggly for 24 hours, basically. He wouldn't sleep unless I used to strap him to me in that snuggly and sleep sitting up with all these pillows. He was crying all the time, and so you can imagine my own level as a parent, sort of stressing about what was wrong. This was so different from the first time. He wouldn't nurse, and when he did, he'd throw it all up. He'd spend all the time. It was really difficult, and we didn't know what was wrong. So it took us about 4 months to finally get that diagnosed. And during that 4 months, I will say that I gave myself Reiki during that time. I gave him Reiki during that time, just as a way to sort of manage my own levels of anxiety and to see if, and I'm doing Reiki also just to kind of see if he'll sleep. When he finally was diagnosed, they said to us, we're going to give you this medication. It may take a good 4 to 6 weeks. We don't know what the damage is to his esophagus and how long that will take for that to heal. And literally, I can't even tell you that it was probably only 2 weeks later was the first time that we saw him smile. And it was pretty powerful not only to see that, but to also, retrospectively looking back and thinking, I wonder if the Reiki had something to do with maybe there wasn't as much damage, or maybe once we got the right medication, that the Reiki was helping the body's own natural ability to heal itself. So for those of you working in the hospital setting, Reiki is a great tool for decreasing pain, anxiety, and discomfort, and it will not deplete your own energy, but improves it. So when you are bedside with a patient, when you are bedside with a child, when you are at a procedure with a child, you can incorporate this into your coping tools, into strategies of helping kids to better manage their own. I think someone needs to mute their. They need to mute their audio. Can everybody just make sure that their sound is muted? You should still be able to hear me even if your sound is muted. But there's some feedback. Okay, so I'll just tell a quick story, and hopefully it won't be upsetting to those that are out there that are not tele specialists. One of a job that I had in the last couple of years, I did some per diem work periodically, and I was working in a predominantly in a setting that was predominantly post-op neuro and brain surgeries in an ICU setting, and there was a young boy who came in who really was just in a lot of pain. He was doing that sort of very high-pitched sound, The neurologist wanted to continue doing, neuro checks. So they were balancing that with the pain medications and things like that and being able to get accurate neuro checks. So he was still in a decent comfort when the nurse came to me and said, can you go in and see him? I think that he might benefit from, some Reiki or guided imagery or something like that. So I went in. The parents were really at their last sort of end. You could see it all over their faces. And I went over to the boy and I explained to him what I was going to do and that I would probably just put my hands about a couple inches away from his head. I would not be touching him. If it was uncomfortable, he'd tell me. If he didn't want me to do it, he could tell me to stop. I explained it that he was in control, and this is kind of a key element to other benefits of Reiki also, is that for people that are, especially children, or any person who feels somewhat disenfranchised, either by illness, special needs, that what Reiki can offer is a sense of control. This is the only the only treatment, rather, that they can say, I've had enough. Here's where you can place your hands. Their body is in control of how much energy they're pulling through me. So as the Reiki practitioner, I function as the conduit for the energy. If you can imagine sort of like an electrical wire. The energy from all that is around us comes through me as the practitioner, and this child was pulling that energy through my hands and into his body and was able to use it the way he needed to. We were able to combine that with some other relaxation of some guided imagery and just deep breathing techniques, and he was actually able to get comfortable enough that he was actually able to fall asleep for the first time since his surgery, probably the day before. When I left, the family actually came over and thanked me, and they were like, what on earth was that? So, it was kind of one of those funny things because people often think it's like some sort of like magical thing that you're doing when really it is the child. Like any other thing that we do in child life, it's the child who is in control of the information that we give them. In this instance, the child is in control of the energy that we give them. And by presenting it that way, it aligns beautifully with our sort of child life philosophy and mission of empowering children and families in their own health care. So anytime, anywhere, this is the other thing that I love about Reiki. I don't have to stop and think about it to do it. I can really be literally doing something else while I'm giving myself Reiki or while I'm giving someone else. So in this picture, in the center of my son and myself, we are sitting on the couch, we're watching TV, and this is actually a pretty common position for us to be sitting and watching TV together. And sometimes he'll come over and sit right up next to me and pull my hands around him, and so that I can give him Reiki. The picture in the top corner is, by the A in anywhere, is a hospital. Obviously, I was trained in a hospital setting. That's where most of my practice has always been, in healthcare and in hospital settings. The one just below that is I'm giving a presentation, and before I give most presentations or before I teach any classes, I always give myself Reiki as a way to calm my own nerves, as well as I put my hands near my throat chakra. If you know anything about the chakras, your throat chakra is your communication. So I use that as a way to sort of support myself that I am able to communicate my thoughts to people. The other one is of my daughter, who is reading a book and giving herself Reiki. And then obviously the one on the bottom is, that's not my home, although I wish it was because it's quite lovely and much nicer than mine. But that is, you can do this in your home. So you do this with your family, with your friends, with your loved ones, with people that you care about, as well as for yourself. So why include it? Well, you include Reiki because you can do it anytime, anywhere. I don't have to stop what I'm doing to include it, and that's what I love it. That's why I love it. It's gentle. It blends with other healing modalities. So you can incorporate it with relaxation techniques. You can incorporate it with preparation. You can incorporate it with guided imagery. You can with behavior modification, with all kinds of other types of coping tools or learning strategies that you can incorporate this into helping other people to feel empowered or helping other people feel more comfortable. There's no contraindicators, so there's nothing that it does that it won't work with. So any medications or anything like that, you don't have to, it doesn't affect. There are no side effects. It's non-addictive. It increases feelings of empowerment. It's simple, easy, and effective. I can't say enough about how easy it is to integrate this into care that you're already doing. So when your children are doing homework at the table, you can put your hand on their back while they're, if they're anything like mine, they're getting all worked up over it. So often I will keep my hand on their back while they're doing their homework as just a way to let them know, hey, I'm here in this with you, but I'm also giving them Reiki at the same time. Walking to school when my children were younger, not so much now, they don't want to hold my hand so much anymore, but I would hold their hand on the way to school and be giving them Reiki that way as well. For child life specialists, I've incorporated it into my preparation. I've incorporated it into when I accompany children to procedures. I always tell them what I'm doing, and I give it a name of what I'm doing. Depending on their age, we'll sort of say how much information. And, if they're really young, I say I have magic hands. If they're a little older, I'll typically describe it as this might be something that you may not have ever heard of before or something that you have heard of before. Excuse me. Sorry, I am recovering from a cold. I suppose it's better that it's a webinar. So it's simple, easy, and effective, and it's easily integrated. I guess that's what I was talking about. It's easily integrated into your practice with children and families. As a Reiki master, I have actually attuned children, many children within the hospital setting and their parents, so that they're able to better support each other. I think it's really empowering to children and adults who have either special needs or chronic illness or healthcare needs that instead of always being on the receiving end, that there's something that they can either offer to themselves when they need to or be able to offer to those people that care for them as a way to sort of also say, you know what, I can care for others. People don't always have to be caring for me, and I think that that's a pretty empowering tool as well. So I have trained lots of families and family members and families with varying types of and different kinds of needs. These are some. If you're in the New Jersey or the tri-state area, these are some upcoming Reiki 1 Level 1 Reiki classes. Monday, April 20th, and Friday, June 5th. If you want more information or to register, you can go to practicalparentingsolutions.com. If you want me to come to your location or your business or your medical center or whatever, you can reach me at practicalparentingsolutions@gmail.com if you're interested in having me teach a class at your location. If you are already a Reiki 1 practitioner and you are looking for Reiki 2, I do have a class on March 20th coming up if people are interested in that. If you live far away and it's not feasible for me to come to you, just reach out to me. I might know some people that I might be able to help you find somebody who could teach in your area or who does do teaching in your area. And I am going to go back to the chat now and take some questions. So does anybody have any questions? I'll give people a few minutes because this thing doesn't tell me whether people are typing or not. And let's see here. How did you, why is it not showing up? Move this. How did you present the option of Reiki to patients? And for some reason it won't let me see the rest of your question, Katie. But I'm going to say, how did I present Reiki to patients? And I'm going to say maybe that's families underneath there. Yeah, I ask often. I used to say, I will tell you in the very beginning when I was really unsure about what I was doing, I often would just sort of be like sneaking it in on the fly and being like, is this working? And just putting my hand on the child's back or, asking them, is it okay if I put my hand here? But what I was really discovering was, and I worked in a sickle cell, in a clinic for sickle cell patients, I was finding that those kids were actually like moving my hands around. It was really interesting. They were moving my hands around their back and saying, no, put them here. No, this actually feels better here. And I was recognizing that, you know what, I need to give this a name. I need to explain this. And I also need to ask permission. Like it really wasn't right what I was doing at that point, but I was somewhat new to it and kind of not really sure what I was doing either. So now I will, to younger children, I will say to the child, I do this thing called Reiki. It's and I give it a name, I give it the real name, and I do this thing called Reiki, and it's kind of like having magic hands. And I used to say this before I was ever even trained in Reiki. Somebody once told me because the lines on my hands made triangles, I had very healing hands. Now I'm sure you are all looking at your hands right now and noticing that we all have lines on our hands that make pretty much a triangle. But what I started to tell kids was, what I had been saying prior to ever learning about Reiki was that if you put that triangle against your mom or dad's triangle on their hand, essentially holding hands, and you're passing. Your mom can give you all of her courage and all of her energy, and I actually was using this language through your hands and help you find your courage, help you find your bravery. So I sort of started to incorporate that into my explanation about Reiki and would say, I have these magic hands and my hands, I have these magic hands and I have this thing called Reiki, and it's okay with you. I can use your blanket or your stuffed animal. It does not have to be skin to skin. As a matter of fact, with most children in a hospital setting, it's better that it's not. So I will say, can I use your blanket? We'll put it over this spot here, and I'll put my hands right here. You tell me when to move them. You tell me if it's, if you want me to stop, and therefore giving that child control of it. Now I find, and this was really early on, and older kids I would just explain, it's something called energy medicine. And I will say you've probably never heard of, it might sound like something you've never heard of before, but maybe you have. And these days I find most people have heard of it. I find that these days most people have heard of Reiki because it's often found in spas and healthcare and things like that. So it actually is sort of popping up places, and people have heard of it before. So it's not that unheard of anymore, and I don't have to spend nearly as much time explaining it. The best reaction, though, that you can get is when people are like, oh, yeah, I totally know that. My friend does it, or so-and-so does it. And that actually happens these days more often than not. The more difficult population is your healthcare professionals. Because there's not a lot of evidence-based research out there on it. It's a lot of anecdotal. There's a lot of stories. There has been more research being done on it, certainly in relation to burnout. and compassion fatigue and its relation to healthcare professionals. So there has been some research in that arena, and if you use it for nothing other than self-care, then you're already ahead of the gang, if you ask me. So I can really think of nothing in all the trainings and all the certifications and degrees, things and classes and stuff that I've taken. This has been one of the most beneficial for me as private, personally and professionally, in supporting me. And I've been a child life specialist for 25 years, and there aren't, many of us don't last that long because of burnout. And I think that Reiki has had something to do with why I have been able to find good balance in my life. Any other questions? And I hope that answered yours. For some reason, I can only read half of it on this chat, which is, let's see if I pull this up. There it is. Here's the rest of the chat. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions, we can conclude here. If you think of other questions or anything else that might come to you later, please don't hesitate to just send me an email, and I will be happy to answer those questions you have about Reiki. It's been an interesting journey for me. It has been something that I value incredibly in my work as another coping tool to help and support children and families, and to help and support myself during very stressful situations, as well as a parent and in my own life to better connect and support my own children. That I have found that has been invaluable to me. I don't know how many of you are signed up for the next 2 webinars. Next week is Talking to Kids About Loss, and the week after that is Move, Create, and Play with guided imagery. So if you are interested in those, please register for those webinars, as well as share those also with any families or friends that you think may be interested in learning about how to use about those tools in supporting their children or the children that you work with. And if there's nothing else, then we can end our webinar here. So thank you all for coming, and I look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you.